Hi Donald, great to have you here over in Jersey. It's absolutely fantastic. The weather just couldn't be any better, could it?
No, well, it's absolutely amazing to be here. Thank you so much, Matt. I mean, this is pretty much 24/7 what you get in the Channel Islands. One of the pools for being here in the first place, and you know, find myself quite a lot doing some work working from home out on the beach here.
It's a wonderful setting. I know we've done a lot of sort of transactions and things together, and as a business we're super impressed as you as an individual, and you know, how we sort of represent some of our clients and the banks and things we work with, and really grateful for giving up your time to help our audience and understand, you know, who Donald is, the company you work for, and sort of peel back some of the layers and get to know a bit more.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Like you say, it's an absolute breath of fresh air dealing with you guys. It's so easy to contact you. When we ask sensible questions, you give us sensible answers. It's just, you know, it's so easy to deal with you, but not just you, the rest of your team.
Yeah, thank you.
Everything just seems to flow easily, and you know, I don't like to compare, but the last few months since we began working together, you know, if I see your name flashing up on the phone, it's very easy to press accept.
Yeah, oh, that's great. Very kind of you to say. I think something that we're super impressed with is the commerciality and being able to explain complicated legal terminology to laymen in terms of not only sales but the clients and things as well, which just makes everything a lot smoother to work with, I guess.
Well, that's very, very kind thing to say. I mean, you know, from our perspective, we've obviously been in the business for a long time.
Yeah.
And these, you know, there's not many scenarios that we've not seen before.
Sure.
And you know, sometimes particularly for borrowers or lenders, they don't see it every day. One of the most enjoyable parts of working with you guys and working with lenders is being able to explain what's going on, and it, you know, as you say, in a commercial way, because no one wants a transaction to take, you know, longer than it needs to. Lawyers should really be as invisible as possible in a transaction. We should be meeting the timescales that you guys set out that the lenders want to achieve, and I'm pleased to hear that that's it's rubbed off very well so far.
Definitely. I think communication's a big part of any professional working together. I think some parts of working with other professionals that can get frustrating to me personally is like a 9-to-5 attitude, and it's not something that I have or have had throughout my working career within banking. Again, it's great to have that sort of flexibility with yourself, that, you know, if there's something urgent we need to speak to you out of hours, you know, very responsive, and obviously you've got your family and things that take a precedent with these things, but you know, it's great that you're able to sort of be there at the end of a phone, a WhatsApp call, you know, helping some of our you know, VIP clients really.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, and you touch on it, it's all about relationships. Of, you know, we all want to separate our professional lives from our personal lives. But
yeah.
I've got a fantastic set of clients, and if a particular client wants to speak at whatever time of the evening really,
yeah,
and you know, let's say it's you or one of your colleagues ringing through, I know that the question isn't going to cause me extra stress. I know it's going to be a sensible question that I'm able to answer.
Yeah.
And if we can push on a transaction and save a couple of days in timescale, then it makes sense to be in communications. There's no way that I would ever want to be the kind of lawyer who shuts down my laptop at 5 o'clock or switches off my phone. The key to doing all this is being responsive,
yeah,
and usually it's an answer that can be a very quick one, a yes or a no, or let's say you've got 3 or 4 options, and if I can give you those options, it gives you a little bit of time to consider what to do next.
Yeah, exactly. I think particularly, you know, you'll have seen it yourself, that a lot of sort of property people and perhaps entrepreneurs, you know, they're working in the business maybe, you know, sort of 9 to 5 perhaps, but they're available in the evenings and they want to be able to speak to their professional advisors, that be sort of tax advisors, the brokers, you know, lawyers like yourself, and that tends to be their time then. It can be difficult because you've got to try and manage those clients who do try and push the boundaries sometimes, that you are available, but you're not just ringing for the sake of ringing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you know, I'm not here to speak about other solicitors, but we do find that, you know, responsiveness is the key to a transaction.
Paramount. It really is. Yeah.
Like I say, most of the time when there's an inquiry there, it can be answered so easily. You know, we've already been instructed, we've got a cost undertaking, I'm familiar with the transaction. With that context behind us, yeah, it's going to be a question that we can answer. If it's not something we can answer, yeah, then I say, well, you know, I'll look at it and I'll come back to you very shortly. But the fact is that we both, you know, we've built up this trust in each other, that we know that if we're not hearing from each other, yeah, it's because we're working behind the scenes, and, yeah, and you know, there's no need to chase each other, because we know that, you know, whether it's by email, WhatsApp or telephone, we're going to have the answer, if not that evening, then in the morning. And you know, that's really that's really why we're here. We're here to get the transactions done, and that's where the pleasure comes out of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, again, just sort of not wanting to discredit some other law firms and, individuals, that can be frustrating how sort of solicitors work. And again, it must be very difficult for yourself if you're acting for a client or acting for a bank, and then there's another solicitor the other side of the table who aren't as responsive or commercially minded. So to get the transaction done, it must be quite difficult sometimes.
England, Wales, it's a huge place. There are probably several 100,000 qualified solicitors, and the spectrum ranks from absolutely brilliant to maybe not so good. Like you say, the commerciality, it gives us a chance to focus on what is important and what's not important, and if we have to be leading, showing them what to focus on and what the target is, sometimes that's just what you've got to do to achieve the results for the clients.
Yeah, definitely. Just sort of touching on what you said, England and Wales there. Scotland has its own separate legal system, which I believe you've helped some of our professional footballers with transactions in Scotland.
That's right,
So is that a different qualification you have to have? How does that work then?
Yeah, that's right. So in Scotland you do 4 years at university to qualify into Scots law, another year to convert to a solicitor, and then after a couple of years at the firm I was working for, they were big advocates of dual qualifying into England and Wales as well. Commerciality is very similar, and obviously work ethic and transactional nature of things, but the technical side is very different. You spend 6 months or so preparing for exams, sit the exams, and then I was ready to work in both jurisdictions, and it also opened up opportunities for me. It meant that I could, I wasn't limited to working in Scotland anymore. I could work in England or any other jurisdiction that supports English law, and ultimately that's what found myself down in Guernsey doing UK real estate working from the islands.
Great. And obviously, it sort of works quite nicely and blends with some of the stuff we do. Some of the high net worth clients and wealthy families that we deal with, they've got properties and luxury assets held through sort of offshore vehicles and structures for a variety of different reasons. They could have been legacy situations, or they could just be sort of new types of tax issues, and so why they may have chosen to go down having those sort of structures. And I know you guys are very familiar with dealing with those types of deals as well, aren't you?
Well, it's an area of law, an area of transactions. Practicing in Scotland, I wasn't particularly aware of what went on offshore. We would get opinions from various firms from various offshore jurisdictions, but I wasn't particularly involved. And that one of the fantastic things about working within Spencer West family is that there are hubs all over the world, really. So we've got, we basically you can set up your structure to own UK real estate anywhere. You can be in the Far East, in Singapore or Hong Kong. You can be in the Middle East, and then particularly in the Caribbean, which we see a lot of correlation with UK real estate and jurisdictions such as BVI, Bermuda, Cayman. And one of the best things of being at Spencer West is that we can take a transaction on like that, and we don't need any external help. We can, I can be a relationship manager from start to finish. I can bring in my colleagues where necessary, and you and your client can feel supported from day one. I can tell you exactly where the transaction is at any given time. Which is,
really invaluable, with some of the clients that we look after. They've got, very complicated needs and requirements, particularly with funding. They could live in England, they could have a structure in the Seychelles, they could have income from multiple different countries and different currencies and things. So I guess, working with somebody like yourselves is paramount to get sort of really complicated deals over the line that people understand, and they can call on help from other specialists within the firm as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in a scenario that you described there, it's so easy to lose control of a transaction in those circumstances because you've got so many third-party stakeholders who, who need to have what you want to do at the top of their list. Whereas if you've got someone at the top pulling the strings, for want of a better phrase, you could genuinely save 2 or 3 months of a transaction timescale by making sure that everyone's doing their job within 2 or 3 days of when they're supposed to.
And a question that always comes up with our clients, and look, some people do have an issue with it, not particularly with yourself, but they may have been burnt in the past, is how do lawyers justify some of their fees? Now, lawyers that we've worked with in the past, it seems as if they just go to the shelf, pick a figure, and then that's what they want to quote for the work. And that may be down to how much work they've got on at the moment, the complexity of the deal, whether they really want the deal. And there are other professionals who work like that as well. And I know when we've asked you to quote for work, it's not an instant sort of you can give a decision straight away, because you need to go away and think about it. So In terms of providing a quote for a piece of work, what actually goes into that?
First of all, you know, I guess it's how the world goes round. So when I do get a quote request in, it's something that, you know, either me or get the wider team involved straight away.
Yeah.
You know, obviously the more information that can be provided at the outset is better for us, so we can get a little bit of context.
Yeah.
We take the loan amount or the purchase price into account because we have to.
I suppose like the risk element side
Exactly.
of things, and yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. We look at the risk element to that, but then, you know, it's very straightforward to go onto the Land Registry website or Land Register in Scotland. It can be quite quick to have a high level look, make sure there's no red flags in the title, a section 106 agreement, any potential option agreement, deeds of variation, anything to give us a bit more context as to whether it's going to be slightly less than vanilla. You know, that's why at the front end, the more information we can see at the start, the more accurate our quote can be to start with. And then looking at it, if it's a drop everything, it's let's say it's a Tuesday evening and it's got to complete by Friday, depending on the resource that I have and the team at that time. You know, that may need to be looked at as well.
Absolutely. I've got a really good question for you now. I hope I don't put you on the spot. I know you guys don't work like this, but there's some lawyers sort of get the sets of questions and inquiries in from a bank and perhaps just sort of leave it, don't do a lot, or they might just have a look at it and deal with one of the questions. And does that really happen? That or?
Yeah, sadly, it does happen more often than you would like. I mean, you know, our set of questions is relatively detailed. What we aim to do is make sure that every single possible inquiry is dealt with at the start. So we're not coming up with new questions 3 days before completion.
Yeah, which is just infuriating for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And our position is that these questions should be able to be anticipated, particularly the ones that are going to take a little bit of time. For example, an environmental search, you need a clear environmental search. If it doesn't come back clear, something needs to be sorted on it. You know, whether it's a development site or something that has got a little bit of history that needs to be cured. Indemnity insurance isn't a panacea. It's not going to cure everything immediately. Lots of lenders don't love indemnity insurance as a first option.
Why would that be the case then? Just sort of explaining to perhaps some of our viewers, and I know in the bridging finance world a lot of those are quite happy to use indemnity, but what are the risks to a lender or even to a borrower perhaps with taking indemnity?
So indemnity insurance can be taken out for a lender only, which is usually a little bit cheaper, or for the borrower, purchaser and the lender. You're indemnifying an unknown, so in an ideal world you want to have the full set of circumstances in front of you so you can make an informed decision. Indemnity insurance purports to protect you up to a certain value, usually either the loan amount or the property value. If something was to go wrong and you were relying on a little bit of information that proves to be inaccurate, then the indemnity insurance should step forward and cover that gap. So for a lender, if they've lost money due to a lower valuation because of this defect, in reality indemnity insurance is not well tested. We don't have much experience with it being enforced, and so, you know, whilst it ticks a box, and, you know, certainly in a lot of scenarios where you're able to gather information from the borrower, which gives you a bit more context and makes you, you know, let's say you didn't have a local search, it makes you feel a little bit more confident that the information coming out of it isn't going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Nothing beats having a full picture of.
Exactly. I know some of the banks, you know, do require full due diligence, and, you know, it can be painful, really.
And I think that's why it's so important as a borrower and as a borrower solicitor that as soon as they do have the pack of information that we need to gather it all together, whether they think it's important or not, we think it's important, we need to receive it and analyse it and pass it on. And I think, you know, from working with you in the past year or so, you know, we just all the politics is removed from it. We know the common goal is to complete the transaction. Yeah. And we find the path of least resistance to getting there.
Absolutely. Just tell me a bit more about Spencer West then as a company. What types of services do they offer? Yeah,
sure. Well, we're very excited to move our team into Spencer West on all days. It was Valentine's Day 2023, so we've been 3.5 months in the job now. Spencer West is a full service international law firm.
Okay.
So
what does that mean then?
So full service means we've got capabilities across every legal aspect that you could imagine. So we've got a corporate team, we've got a litigation team, we've got construction, we've got employment, anything you could really imagine. Michael Morris and I founded the Guernsey hub of Spencer West. it's the first presence Spencer West have had in the Channel Islands. Thank you very well. It's very, very exciting. Lots of opportunities to build the practice, and one of the main motivators for doing that is the presence that Spencer West has built internationally. So we've got a presence in the Far East, in Singapore and Hong Kong. We've got the Middle East, Caribbean, which is Cayman, BVI and Bermuda. With the hubs that Spencer West has built internationally, it enables us to be a one-stop shop, for want of a better phrase, where I can manage a transaction, bringing my colleagues in from the different areas, which gives the client a relationship manager all the way through from client inception all the way to completion. Yeah,
definitely. Thanks for explaining that. That's great. A few years ago, we helped a board member of a FTSE 100 listed company to facilitate quite a large loan, and some of the documentation was missigned. His lawyers in London hadn't perhaps sort of gone through things as properly as they could. This gentleman was very fortunate and had got his own yacht, and he'd gone sailing off on his yacht down through the south of France over to Monaco. Unfortunately, he then had to dock the boat, fly back home again, re-sign the paperwork, which caused sort of him and his family quite a lot of distress. And what I'm sort of trying to get at is that if you've got these hubs potential, I know that was an exceptional circumstance, but to very wealthy people, time is very, very limited to them, and you know, that may have well been eliminated, something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that, you know, it's a fantastic scenario, being able to call on colleagues with different expertise and different geography all the way around the world. And then I guess hopefully these days, you know, DocuSign, electronic signatures will be able to help in that scenario as well, provided he's got a little bit of Wi-Fi on his boat.
On his boat, yeah.
We're certainly on a crusade to encourage paperless transactions as far as humanly possible.
Okay, Donald, you know, we've covered off an awful lot there, and hopefully our viewers have found some of that knowledge that and wisdom you've passed on really helpful. So tell us, you know, what sets you apart from other law firms? You know, what's the magic that goes on?
Well, you know, we don't like to think of it as magic, but it's us really. Like, it's the way that we like to transact. So in terms of where the transaction sits, if you were to give me a call, or if anyone else gave me a call, I want to be able to give them an answer, or I want to be able to say, I'm going to find this answer for you and I'm going to get it to you in a little while. So responsiveness is absolutely huge, and I suppose twinned with that is transparency. So again, if you call me up, I want to be able to tell you exactly where a transaction is at a given moment. I want to tell you where it sits and how what steps are needed to progress us forward. If it's sitting with a valuer, with an IMS, if there's something, let's say a local council had to resolve a defect, something like that, we like to think of ourselves as deal makers, as solution driven. So we would never come to you with a concern and say, you know, let us know. We say, okay, this is a concern. There are various options, you know, whether you can get around it, whether, you know, you can take indemnity like we were speaking about, or whether, you know, we need the help of a third party to do so. But there's always a way around it. As much as I would love it to be, real estate is not rocket science, and you know, never will be. And you know, there's always a way through it. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, I think you might have upset a few other lawyers saying that, though, Donald. But as I say, it really is, you know, terrific working with you guys, and you know, we can't thank you enough for the stuff and hard work that you work with us and our clients.
Well, thank you very much. Long may it continue.
Absolutely. Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Donald.